Hello, you're listening to Hugo Talk Some More and another lockdown news roundup of sorts. So there's been a lot of bum fluff in the media about Matt Hancock today, and I'll talk about that later, and how the media, I believe, are going to play their part in this. But first, of course, there is a protest tomorrow in London. Some people saying it's going to be the biggest one so far. I hope so. Just people, stick to your own communities and don't let people lead you around so much, because that's when the problem starts. What I find interesting is that I've been told by a couple of people that controlled opposition mainstream media outlet Talk Radio apparently are going to be covering this with reporters at the protest. Now, how many protests have there been so far? There's been a lot, hasn't there? And they haven't done this before, so why are they doing it now? It seems a little bit strange to me. I would avoid them if they ask you for an interview, as they will probably edit it to make you look stupid. So anyway, I'm curious as to why all of a sudden this mainstream media channel are going to be at the protest, when before they were pretty much ignoring it like all the others, unless of course it was something negative to report from it. Anyway, first story up is this one. UK facing summer of food shortages due to lack of lorry drivers, loss of 100,000 hauliers due to COVID and Brexit will cause food rolling power cuts. Experts warn, it says here in the news. Tesco bosses raised the issue at a meeting with the Transport Minister Lady Veer last week, warning that the vacancies were creating 48 tonnes of food waste each week, the equivalent of 2 truckloads. Sources at the supermarket chain said the lorry driver shortage was affecting fresh food with short shelf life most. James Mee, a blueberry farmer from Peterborough, said the shortages of food with short shelf life could also hit Wimbledon, synonymous with the British strawberry. He warned that unless there was a government intervention, food could rot in the fields, with concerns being raised in the farming community for the late summer grain harvest in addition to soft fruits. Now, this is not the first time we have heard the rumour of food shortages being bandied around. Just a few days ago, the CEO of Cold Chain Federation said the real crisis for food supplies starts now, which sounds like an ominous warning. So I was talking about this a while back. If you remember, I recommended stocking up on food. Every time you go to the supermarket each week, get yourself some extra tinned food, some tinned fruit, tinned veg, tins of corned beef, tinned goods. So you have something there as a backup, store it away in some kind of container, not just because, of some kind of apocalyptic happening, or that what they're telling you here, that there will be a food supply, but also in the case of, say, crazy inflation. That's also a possibility. Now, in other news, we have this sorry state of affairs with the entity called Matt Hancock. Now, this, I believe, as I said earlier, is a big-time distraction. It only appears in the mainstream media for a reason, I believe. If they didn't want you to know about it, then the Sun, who I believe were the first to run the story, they wouldn't have said a word about it. It would have been brushed under the carpet. Now, today we've seen a couple of giveaways of this. This here, for instance. Number 10 won't launch inquiry into leaking of CCTV photo of Matt Hancock kissing aide. Whitehall sources rule out mole hunt to avoid whistleblowing claims from source of damaging images. The government will not launch any inquiry into who leaked a photograph of Matt Hancock kissing an aide, even though they believe they know who did it. The Guardian understands, it says here. I wonder why they're not going to try and work out who did it. Is it because it was leaked on purpose? This government are always leaking stories to the press. Why stop now? It says here, sources say that they have ruled out a mole hunt because if the person was tracked down, they could then claim that they were a whistleblower who was exposing wrongdoing. Yeah, whatever. This is all rubbish. And not only does it exist to confuse and distract the public from the more serious issues happening at the moment, it also acts as a great way for Matt Hancock to quit his job and disappear somewhere in an attempt to avoid the questions and allegations that are sure to follow in the not so distant future. Perhaps he has become too hated and therefore too much of a liability. He was always shite at speaking anyway, tripping over his words. Now, then it was reported later on today that Boris Johnson said he would stand by him. In your classic bullshit response in situations like this from politicians. This is the standard reply. It's supposed to give the illusion that Boris is a stand-up guy, that he will stick by and support his team at all costs, right? It's supposed to give off that kind of illusion. But to me, this is all PR games, smoke and mirrors, and the government and the mainstream media work together. So now what we will see over the weekend and today, we will see news platforms put out articles like this one here in The Guardian. The Guardian view on Matt Hancock. He has to go. It says here, failure to dismiss the health secretary risks making a laughingstock of the government's COVID strategy. This is a huge, big, long, bombastic, long-winded piece of drivel from The Guardian saying Boris Johnson must sack Hancock, and expect more of this from all the other mainstream platforms. They do this to create the illusion that there is a load of pressure on Boris to fire him or make him resign, and this will build and build in the media. It's all an illusion created by the media, and I reckon we will see him quit next week with Boris painted as reluctantly allowing him to resign. That's what I think will happen. I think it's all manipulated. Hey, I could be wrong. That's what I'm thinking. Maybe they're just full out trolling the public now and trying to wind them up, like I talked about in a previous video. But this all seems orchestrated. You can see all of the media stories now lining up, trying to tell a story. And I think this is trying to get him out of that job, move him away somewhere. It's time for them to start moving people and names around so that the blame, when it comes, is not so easily pinned onto one person. But they are mistaken, as people are not going to forget or forgive. As always, thanks for listening. Come and subscribe to the tribe at hugotalks.com, a place for like-minded souls who don't follow the fake stream media.